Right now, today, oil is trading above $99 a barrel. Gas prices at the pump just crossed a national average of $4.12 per gallon, up more than $1.20 since the war in Iran started in late February. Inflation just spiked to 3.3% in March, jumping almost a full point in a single month, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the Federal Reserve? Completely frozen. They haven't cut rates, they won't say when they will, and with Jerome Powell's term expiring in May, the central bank is operating with one hand tied behind its back and a geopolitical wildfire burning under its feet. Here's the thing most people are missing. This isn't just a scary news cycle to scroll past. This is actually one of the rarest financial environments in modern history. A Fed freeze layered on top of an oil shock, layered on top of a leadership vacuum at the most powerful financial institution in the world. And inside that environment, there are 4 specific windows of opportunity that most people will completely miss because they're too distracted by the chaos. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which windows are open right now, how long they stay open, and the specific moves to make before they close. Let me give you the full picture, because context matters here. The IEA, the International Energy Agency, has called this the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. That's not a talking head on cable news, that's the world's foremost energy authority. Brent crude surpassed $111 a barrel earlier this month and has since been trading in the triple digits, with the Strait of Hormuz reduced to a trickle of roughly 17 vessels per day compared to about 130 daily transits before the war. Meanwhile, the Fed held rates steady at 3.50% to 3.75% in March, its second hold in a row, while simultaneously revising its 2026 growth forecast down to just 0.9%. Slow growth, rising inflation, a frozen central bank. That is the textbook definition of stagflation risk, and the last time we had a combination like this was the 1970s. I spoke to a friend last week. Mid-30s, solid job, about $40,000 in a regular savings account earning next to nothing. She said, "I'm just waiting to see how this plays out before I do anything." That's the most expensive sentence in personal finance. Waiting is a decision, and right now, waiting is probably costing her money every single week. What I want to walk you through today is what I call the 4-window framework. The idea is simple. When the Fed is frozen and oil is spiking, 4 very specific windows of financial opportunity crack open. They don't stay open forever. Some of them close the moment the Fed makes a move, and with the next FOMC meeting scheduled for April 28th and 29th, some of these windows could start closing in literally 2 weeks. Think of it like 4 doors in a building that's starting to flood. Each door leads to higher ground, but they don't stay unlocked, and the water is rising. The 4 windows are the cash window, the lock-in window, the commodity window, and the inflation shield window. Let's go through each one. Window 1, the cash window. Here's something almost nobody talks about in a rate freeze environment. The Fed cut rates 3 times in the second half of 2025, and yet many high-yield savings accounts are still offering rates that are 10 times or more the national average. Right now, in April 2026, top high-yield savings accounts from institutions like Vero Money, Axos Bank, New Tech Bank, and Wealthfront are offering up to 5% APY. Meanwhile, the national average for a traditional savings account sits at just 0.39%. Do the math on that. If you have $30,000 in a regular bank account, you're earning about $117 a year. In a top high-yield savings account right now, that same $30,000 earns $1,500 a year. That's a difference of nearly $1,400 with zero additional risk, since these accounts are FDIC insured up to $250,000. Here's what nobody tells you. High-yield savings rates are tied to the Fed. The moment the Fed cuts, and markets are currently pricing in the first cut no earlier than June, those yields start dropping. The most likely path, according to iShares' 2026 fixed income outlook, is for the Fed to pause early in the year and potentially cut once or twice to bring rates toward the 3 to 3.25% range. Every cut chips away at those high-yield savings account returns. You have weeks, not months, to capture the best of this window before it starts closing. The cash window is open. You just have to walk through it. Window 2,
the lock-in window. This one pairs directly with the cash window, but it's a slightly different move. CDs, certificates of deposit, are currently offering up to about 4.20% APY for short-term locks, according to Curinos data tracked by Fortune as of early April 2026. Now, some people hear CD and think boring, but here's why this window matters right now specifically. If you lock into a 12-month or 18-month CD today, you're guaranteed that rate regardless of what the Fed does in June, September, or December. If the Fed does cut twice this year, your Axos high-yield savings rate drops with it. Your CD rate? Locked. You already won. The trap most people fall into at this stage is waiting for rates to go even higher before locking in. But here's the thing, Powell himself acknowledged at his March press conference that the oil shock has complicated the rate picture and that the US hasn't made as much inflation progress as hoped. The Fed isn't hiking. The ceiling on these rates is right about where it is now. You're not locking in at a low, you're locking in near the top. The lock-in window is open right now. It won't be in 6 months. Window 3. The commodity window. Let me be honest with you here, because I see a lot of misleading content around this one. Nobody should be dumping their entire portfolio into energy stocks because oil is up. That's not a strategy, that's chasing. But here's the real data. The S&P 500 Energy Index is up about 17% in 2026, while the broader S&P 500 is essentially flat, down about 6.7% year-to-date. Chevron is up 20% year-to-date. Occidental Petroleum is up 13%. And the longer-term case here isn't just about the Iran war. Morgan Stanley's research team noted in March 2026 that geopolitical risk is becoming a persistent part of the backdrop, not merely episodic, and that investors may want to consider increasing exposure to defense, energy, and industrial resilience, where government spending can drive multi-year demand. This doesn't mean you become an energy trader. It means if your portfolio is 100% tech and growth stocks, you're currently exposed to the exact sector that's been getting hit hardest, while the sector that's actually working is one you probably have very little of. A 5 to 10% tilt towards a diversified energy ETF, XLE or similar, isn't speculation. In this environment, it's balance. The commodity window is messy, but it's real, and right now, most people's portfolios aren't reflecting the world we're actually living in. Window 4. The inflation shield window. This is the window that matters most if the oil shock doesn't resolve quickly. According to CNBC's analysis of the March CPI data, even with a temporary ceasefire, economists said the inflationary effects of the war will likely take several weeks or months to unwind, and that a prolonged conflict risks raising consumer prices more broadly across food, airfare, and manufactured goods. Inflation at 3.3% and potentially heading higher in April's data means your purchasing power is eroding right now. The inflation shield move is Treasury inflation-protected securities, known as TIPS, and Series I bonds, which are currently offering rates tied directly to CPI. When inflation goes up, your I bond yield goes up with it, automatically. The annual purchase limit for I bonds is $10,000 per person through treasurydirect.gov. That's not a huge number, but for the conservative portion of your portfolio, money you want protected, not grown, this is the closest thing to a force field against exactly what's happening right now. Not the 1970s, not the 1990s. This environment, right now in April 2026, I bonds were designed for exactly this. Here's the honest thing I want to say about all of this. I understand that when oil is near $99 a barrel, inflation is jumping, and a war is reshaping global energy markets, it is genuinely scary. That fear is not irrational, it's information. The problem is what most people do with that fear. They freeze, they watch, they wait for certainty that never arrives. But here's what the data has shown, over and over again, across every major market shock in modern history. The people who came out ahead weren't the ones who predicted the outcome. They were the ones who acted on the environment in front of them instead of the one they wished they had. Warren Buffett said it plainly, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." Right now, most people are fearful. Most people are frozen. That is exactly when the moves that matter most are available to anyone willing to make them. The gap between knowing this and doing it, that's not a knowledge gap, it's an action gap, and you can close it today. Here are your 4 specific moves right now in order of how quickly you can execute them. Step 1. Move any cash sitting in a traditional savings account to a top high-yield savings account today. Vero, Axos, Newtek, and Wealthfront are all currently offering up to 5% APY. This takes about 15 minutes online. Step 2. If you have a cash reserve you don't need liquid for 12 to 18 months, look at locking a portion into a short-term CD at up to 4.20% APY before the Fed cuts and those rates disappear.
Step 3. Review your investment portfolio's sector allocation. If energy is underrepresented relative to its current market role, consider a small, deliberate tilt through a diversified energy ETF, not a gamble, a rebalance. Step 4. Go to treasurydirect.gov and consider buying I-bonds up to the $10,000 annual limit per person. With CPI at 3.3% and climbing, this is the most direct inflation hedge available to everyday investors right now. And the 5th move, the one that ties all of this together, is the hardest one. Stop waiting for certainty before you act. The window doesn't stay open until you feel ready. It stays open until the environment changes. Zoom out for a second. We're living through something genuinely unusual. A US-Iran war reshaping global energy markets. A central bank frozen by competing pressures. A leadership transition at the Fed. Inflation re-accelerating. The S&P 500 down nearly 7% on the year, while energy stocks have surged over 34%. This is not a normal moment, but it is a navigable one, if you know which windows are open. The people who build real wealth aren't the ones who panic sell in downturns or wait on the sidelines for perfect conditions. They're the ones who look at the environment clearly, understand what it's offering, and act deliberately. In a world where oil is above $99 a barrel, the Fed is frozen, and inflation just jumped almost a full percentage point in a single month. The people who protect their purchasing power, lock in elevated yields, and position deliberately are the ones who come out the other side stronger. You now know exactly what those moves look like. The windows are open right now. The question is whether you'll walk through them. Watch the next video on screen where I break down exactly how to build a recession-resistant portfolio when inflation is rising and growth is slowing, because that's the environment we may be heading into next. And subscribe so you never miss an update when the market changes fast. Disclaimer: just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.